Namo Buddhaya, Namaste. I'm back in the small temple near the town. I hope you can hear me okay. There is a new microphone, but there is also background noise. India is a very busy place and vibrant, many festivals going on all of the time, and finding a place during the day to make these short videos is proving more difficult as time goes on, because temples aren't necessarily quiet places here, and the countryside comes to life after the monsoon season with the planting of the vegetables, legumes and root vegetables and so many things. It's a very much part of their devotional practice and worship, and becomes a colourful and noisy affair. So even up in the forest, my little retreat, it can be quite noisy at time, and of course during the day a little bit too hot excuse me, to sit. One is required to come into the town, sit by the water or in the shade, and there is a little bit of noise to be endured. But our practice is about this. Our practice is not about seclusion from life. It is about citta viveka, which is taking our citta, that which knows, into a place of seclusion inside. And this is how we develop equanimity. This is how we become unwavered by the goings on in the surroundings around us. Now, this isn't a problem for my practice, but it can be a little bit difficult when making these short videos. So please have Khanti, patience, and I will continue with my best efforts to answer your questions and bring you some Dharma in simple monastic terms. I have some questions today from Hayato. Hayato, I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Hayato K. Hayato is from Japan. He is living in India also, another alien like myself, and he has written to me with some useful questions, asking that I make a video, because out of his compassion for his fellow Dharma practitioners, he feels it's useful that the answers are shared. And I too encourage you all to submit questions that without any hesitation, because whatever you think about the question, you may think, oh, I don't want to ask this, it might sound silly, or it's too simple a question, or the opposite, you may think it's too intellectual for this simplistic monk. But nevertheless, whatever your questions, please continue to submit them, because they will also help other people. And most people have the same questions, just at different times during their practice. So as time goes on, we're able to answer everybody's questions together. Now, the cleaning lady has come along to clean the temple here. Hopefully I can continue. I'm not in her way. I'm sat away in the corner, and I hope you can hear me okay. So I'm going to proceed with the first question from Hayato, and it is there an afterlife for the person who reaches nirvana? Namaste. I'll repeat the question. Is there an afterlife for the person who reaches nirvana? Well, firstly, let me just, this isn't a criticism, it's the correct word, Hayato, nirvana. However, this is the Sanskrit word, nirvana, as opposed to the Pali word, nibbana. In the northern tradition of Buddhism, which includes Mahayana, Tibetan, Vajrayana, and others, they use the scriptural language of Sanskrit. And in the southern tradition, which includes Theravada, they use the scriptural language of Pali, both ancient Indian languages and very similar. Some words have slightly different translations, but most are pretty much the same. So I will use the term NIBBANA because I'm from the southern tradition, Theravada. Theravada, by the way, means way of the elders and is considered as the more closely associated way of practice with the scriptures themselves from the time of the Buddha, as it has been taken directly from that lineage, from the elders, before Buddhism transmitted, migrated geographically throughout the world. From its central hub, India, it moved outwards. And as it moved outwards, it picked up along the way many practices and traditions from other religions in other countries. And this is where there's such variance in the practice. However, there are many layers to Buddhism, starting with the truth of suffering and the end of suffering. Then the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, the practice of Sila, Samadhi, Panya, and the realization of wisdom, which is anicca, dukkha, anatta. Now these are all Pali words I've spoken of regularly in all of these videos, so I won't explain them again. The scriptures then, the Tripitaka, the word of the Buddha, gives us a huge number, 84,000 teachings and examples of the Buddha's teachings and this practice. And then thereafter is the Abhidharma, a more in-depth look at the mind and the practice and meditation. And further to that, commentaries over many hundreds and thousands of years by renowned monks and writers and philosophers and theologists. So, as well as its geographical spread, you can see it has grown organically through its intellectual aspects. But the core teachings of the Buddha, the truth of suffering and the end of suffering, the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, and anicca, dukkha, anatta, are the same in all traditions. So it is this that is the important thing to practice, study, understand, and remember over and above all other additions to the practice traditionally throughout the world. These are beautiful traditions in themselves and wonderful devotional practices, but they are in addition to the word of the Buddha. I've digressed a little there, but with regards to the question, Hayato, is there an afterlife for the person who reaches, and I'm going to say Nibbana? The answer is no. The afterlife would be rebirth. Nibbana is the escape, if you like. Escape is the wrong word in a way, because it sounds like you're running away from. Nibbana is the end of rebirth. So in Buddhism, we understand the notion of rebirth. Now this is going to go into one of your next questions. Let's just keep with this one. Is there an afterlife for the person who reaches Nirvana? So the answer is no, because the point of reaching Nirvana is to not be reborn again. So let's leave that answer there. And then you go on to say, I personally believe we have life after life because we have lots of proof, which Jim Tucker, the professor of University of Virginia, shows us. However, I'd like to know what happens when we reach Nirvana. So that's your second question with the the statement preceding. Yes, now one can say there's proof for all kinds of things, but all proof is always open to question. The whole point being, when we go back to the teachings of the Buddha, is that the Buddha said this is to be experienced, this practice and its results are to be experienced individually by the wise. Not to believe in him, his teachings, or his disciples, or their teachings, but to take these teachings, practice, and realize, understand for yourself, through experience, the seeing of the results of the practice. This is the way, not through belief, not through prayer, not through worship. Through practice, experience, and understanding. This then takes all that burden of proof away. Whether you are the professor of a University of Virginia, or whether you are a farmer in the fields of southern India, there is no intellectual basis behind the proof of experiencing something for yourself. And this is what the Buddha taught us to do. And this is the key difference between all theistic religions, where there is a God, a supreme power, deciding what will happen and how to help you, and you are praying to this higher being. And this practice of Buddhism, where we have the teacher in the Buddha, whom has subsequently attained to parinibbana, never to be reborn, as he was, and therefore only his teachings, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the disciples of the Buddha, and their ongoing very long lineage, are there to exist in his place. And at his parinibbana, he was asked, who will replace you? Who will replace the Buddha? His name he gave himself as an epitaph was Tathagata, which means thus gone. Now he didn't say, build statues, worship them and pray to them. He didn't say, appoint Sariputta, my main disciple, or Moggallana, my other left-hand, right-hand men. No. He said, the Dharma will be in charge. Put it that way. So, obviously subsequently, in later years, through these expansions of the religion, globally and throughout the world, things have been added on. And there is choice. There is Buddhist cosmology, Buddhist mythology. Even the Abhidharma, there is debate as to its origins. There are the what are they called? Past lives of the Buddha stories, Jataka tales, which are very much mythology. Some of the stories in the Tripitaka, some of the discourses, some of the recounts of happenings can be, let's say, a little bit allegorous of make-believe, but one can choose to believe literally, or take these things metaphorically, or just as analogies, similes, and representative of an idea, like with other religions. One can believe all of the miracles in the Bible, or you can choose to take them as just illustrations of a point. With the Tripitaka, with the Buddhist scriptures, one could choose to accept that there were superpowers employed by the Buddha and his disciples, or you could choose to say these were just examples to make a point. The point I'm making is it is your choice what you choose to believe, how deep you wish to go into those extra aspects over and above the core teachings of the Buddha. So, as far as is there life after death, if you attain to Nibbana, the idea, the understanding is that there is not life after death. This is what the Buddha taught. But there is no proof other than, like the Buddha said, you to experience for yourself the notion of death and what accompanies it, what happens thereafter, may become evident. Now, I have talked about this before. During our lives, we're dying and being reborn in every moment. Each breath in, each breath out is like a new life. Because as every minimal amount of time goes by the nature of anicca, all things are uncertain and changing, our lives are changing. This body sitting here is different to some years ago. The cells have been replaced. More or less everything in your bodies is replaced as you grow old and as you mature. But not just through aging. Your hair grows, it gets cut off, it grows again. It's new hair, but it may look the same style. You can see someone who's had the same hairstyle for 30 years, but it's been replaced, different hair, every few months. We're changing. These are just our bodies. But our citta, what knows, is there, the witness, observing. So it's a complicated array of questions I've got from you here, Hayato, and I think I've answered some of the future questions here in that little explanation. But yes, with regards to proof from professors like Jim Tucker, and I don't know of specific examples other than I think he was interviewed in some podcasts and things that are Buddhist related because of this nature of rebirth. Now, rebirth is anything you choose it to be, from being reborn in each moment of your daily existence. For instance, if you receive a notification noise on your phone and you're expecting to have the answer to a job interview, did you get the job, did you not get the job? We'll text you later. You hear beep beep, and through your mind, right, I've got the job. And all of a sudden you've planned your entire future life. You open the text, you didn't get the job. All of a sudden you've had to replan your entire future life. In just that moment, everything has changed. It's one example, but each breath is rebirth. Now, the only way you can see this for yourself is through the practice of meditation. And in meditation, you are focusing the mind, developing the mind to understand anicca, dukkha, anatta. Anatta being the principle here of this body, this personality, and everything that you feel is you, being only a consequence of surrounding conditions. Your personality is a consequence of your surrounding conditions. If you were brought up on a farm in India, or you were brought up in the city of London, you would grow up with a different personality, as we understand a personality to be. But there would be an aspect of you which is going to be the same wherever you are brought up. But without going to all the details of nature and nurture, rebirth in Buddhism has nothing to do with this. It is simply that knows and witnesses and sees these conditioned phenomena of this life in this body, and sees it clearly through meditation, will equally see it clearly when there is not this life and not this body, wherever that knowing has gone. Now, that does not have to be believed, it does not have to be proved. Does it matter to you now whether it is whether you do believe it or whether it is proved? No. You're still going to get old, you're still going to get sick, you're still going to die. If you practice your life with sila, moral virtue, if you practice your life with meditation, developing your mind, if you develop wisdom, this understanding of the truth, you will be leading a good life. Now, whether you are of any religion, theistic or atheistic, or none of the two, or no religion at all, you will in this life have a better life by leading a good life. You reap what you sow, cause and effect, or actions, which is translated in Pali as karma, just means actions, result in consequences within this life. But then we could say, does that go on to a future life? Nobody has come back and actually told us whether it does or whether it doesn't. The Buddha would not answer this question, only to say that you are the heir to your karma. Now, whether that be in this life or the future life is up to you. But through meditation, through this practice, you can get a glimpse and have your own proof. Because the only proof that you need, and the only proof you can have, is that of your own experience of what happens when you attain to Nibbana. Now, this is in the advanced stages of meditation, where you can expect to develop sufficient ability and wisdom to progress through the jhanas and maybe get a glimpse of such a phenomena, which isn't even a phenomena. So what happens when we reach nirvana? I don't know. Nobody knows. And do you need to know? Because you haven't got a choice other than you're going to get old, you're going to get sick, and you're going to die. All you have a choice over is what you do now in this life. So what happens, it doesn't matter. It's a question, an imponderable question, a question that it can be answered in many, many ways. So many answers, but can any of them be proved? Not until someone literally comes back, and then did they? Now there's many near-death experiences and recounts of what happens, but they're near-death experiences. Nobody's been dead for 15 years and then popped back and unequivocally proved that, here we go, this is what happens. And that won't happen. But through practice, through meditation, we are experiencing death. We are bringing ourselves to a near-death experience, not in a morbid, an unfortunate way, but in the cessation of the phenomena created by these physical bodies and these thinking minds. The stages of samadhi, the jhanas. And when you attain to these stages of samadhi and the jhanas, you will see, evidently, for yourself, what you can expect. You will also see the lack of relevance of this physical body and this thinking mind in relation to that future. So that then asks, are we going to be born again? Now, if we still have fetters, attachments, ties, we still haven't broken the coalesces down the desires at the point of death, then it is assumed that we will be reborn. But again, it isn't proved. But the practice is to reduce our unwholesome desires. To break down, the process of enlightenment is to break down the fetters. There are 10, and we break them one by one. These ties to samsara, to this life, to rebirth. Now, rebirth is either in the highest of heavens or the lowest of hells, the animal realms or the human realms, anywhere in between. Nibbana is outside of these realms. It is no more rebirth in any realms. Now, without going into all the details of that and the stages of enlightenment, you can safely assume that unless you attain to Nibbana in this life, you're going to be reborn somewhere, if you choose to believe that. It's very hard not to believe that when you consider all the facts of the Buddha's teachings and what you are understanding through your own experience. So you're not going to be souls floating around from one realm to another, animal realm, human realm, heaven realm, hell realm, because souls implies a personality in spirit form moving. And personality doesn't go with chitta. Personality is conditioned of this lifetime, this physical body, thinking mind, and supporting conditions around you, pachaya. These conditions are what make this personality what we think it is. That will not be reborn, rebirth. So acquired knowledge, you're saying in your opinion that a knowledge acquired in this life will be taken to the next life. No, it won't. Wisdom will. The realization of what happens through rebirth, and with deep practice, even the recollection of former lives and previous rebirths can be attained to. But again, this is not to be believed. This can only be experienced, witnessed, seen for yourself. This is the only proof you need, what you can see for yourself. So this is about rebirth. I've gone about it in a bit of a, trying to answer it by questions rather than a straight Dharma talk. Maybe I should have talked on Buddhism and rebirth. But I hope that answers what you're saying. I've been through most of those things. Is there an afterlife? Happens when we reach Nibbana? Are we going to give birth again? New souls? You're basically saying, what's this rebirth all about? Do we get reborn? And what do we do when we're in Nibbana? Well, nobody knows. That's the first answer. But you, through meditation, can experience what's likely to happen after you get old, you get sick, and you die. And the Buddha himself said, I can't answer that, there's no proof, other than what you can experience yourself. And finally, you're asking about, shall we believe only his teachings? He's asking you to believe what you experience for yourself through your practice, yes? Not what he says. So yes, you believe the teachings of the Buddha, but belief is the wrong word. You understand the teachings of the Buddha. So yes, you should understand the teachings of the Buddha only, because he is perhaps the only teacher that isn't asking you to believe in something else. And do I believe in the superpowers of the Buddha and his disciples? Do I believe in them? What I believe in is irrelevant. What do you want to believe in is up to you. It's a belief again. There's no such thing. Belief is just fairy stories. What do I understand? I mean, I understand how Jesus performed certain miracles. There are scientific answers to how he did certain things. So you could say I believe in those miracles, but not really, because they've been disproved as miracles by the scientific explanation. But I understand them. With the Buddha, he didn't ask us to believe anything. He just said, understand. This is what you should, how you go about leading your life, this is what you do, and this is the result. So, the powers of the Buddha and his disciple, magic powers, flying on carpets, appearing, psychological abilities, seeing omnipotently across the world, reading people's minds, appearing, all of these wonderful things. He said at his parinibbana when all these miraculous things were happening, this is nothing. Ignore it. It means nothing. What is important is the Dharma. And that is suffering, the end of suffering. The Four Noble Truths, Noble Eightfold Path. Because every day is a miracle. This planet revolves, and apparently it's another beautiful day, the sun rising or not. The snow's falling out of the sky, or not. Trees grow, there's birth, humans, this wonderful miracle of life. Wow, what's not to believe in? Unexplicable, unbelievable phenomena that occurs in terms of miracles and superpowers. Well, it's what you see, what you hear, smell, taste, touch, feel, and what you think about. That is what's only coming in through your sense doors to be processed, understood, and rejected or accepted. It's not belief. Experience it for yourself. And you may well experience your own superpowers, or not. But you must always ask yourself this question when you ask all these questions. Does that matter? The next person I see today, if I'm kind to them, that will matter to me and that will matter to them. If I know what happens after I die, will that matter to them? Will it matter to me? No, not really. So there's your point. What matters is what you're doing today or now in this moment. And that should be practicing well. Sila, samadhi, and developing wisdom. And wisdom is not intellectual knowledge, understanding, and knowing or thinking you know you have proof about what happens after death. Because there is no possibility of that ever. However correct, believable, and almost seemingly unequivocally provable any scientist's thesis on any subject, whether it's life after death or before birth, or why a tree grows the way it does, it doesn't matter. There is always some area for doubt. But where there is no area for doubt is in the core teachings of the Buddha. And if there is area for doubt, it's because you're not understanding what he said. And that is what you need to develop, an understanding of the core teachings of the Buddha, because that is the answer to all questions, and the meaning of life, and what happens after this life. And that is your choice. So, I'm going to wrap it up there. I don't know whether this video is even going to be heard. A lot of noise, a lot of activity was going on here around me. Hopefully the mic did its job. My apologies. I tried as my best, mindfully, to keep concentrating on what I was saying and doing. But quite literally, I don't know what was in the background, but that way, a lot was going on. So, in a way, it was a good practice for me. And I hope you enjoyed it and it wasn't too disrupted. I must say I've had more relaxing environments to sit and talk. and I might have to look for another venue again now. So we'll keep trying. So Namo Buddhaya, many blessings to you. Metta, Sukhi Hotu, Sukhi Hotu, Sukhi Hotu. Be happy, be well. May your practice be fruitful, and may you soon attain to Nibbana. Namo Buddhaya.